The province has designated hotspots in our region priority areas that can get vaccinated sooner. We explain who's eligible right now and who still has to wait. Parts of Ontario have started vaccinating migrant workers, a check-in on where things sit here in Windsor, Essex. Take a live look outside right now. You can see the rain falling from the sky. Nice to get a little bit of a break here. I know people were waiting for those clouds to open up. Colette Kennedy with a look at the full forecast tonight. I'm Chris Hensing. Thanks for joining us. Another day of new province-wide restrictions, this time a stay-at-home order. Small retailers are now once again forced to close, but big box stores are allowed to open. There's some changes, though. This time, they can only sell essential items. Our Jacob Barker joins us now live. Jacob, you popped inside of some of these spots today. How are they making this work?
Well, Chris, I went inside the Dougal Walmart to have a look, and right away you can see the difference. To the right is the grocery section, which was very busy and bustling, but then pretty much the rest of the store, except for the pharmacy area, everything is blocked off. Big box stores like Walmart are now limited to selling only essential items like groceries, household supplies, and pharmacy items. So pallets of other goods are set up to stop people from going into the clothing area, as well as ropes and coverings to stop people from shopping in parts of the store like sporting goods, toys, and electronics. I also checked out a Real Canadian Superstore, which for the most part is groceries, but the area where it has its clothing brand is set up to and open to browse. There are some signs there to inform customers that the items are not for sale at this time, and informs them that there is curbside pickup available.
Now, these changes here, they're all new. How are customers reacting to them?
Well, Chris, in Walmart, I did see a few people wondering why they couldn't get into certain parts of the store. One family was confused by the pallets of laundry detergent stopping them from getting into the clothing section. They were searching for a way to get around. Another man was obviously annoyed about not being able to get into the sporting goods section as well. But for the most part, those I spoke with were understanding of the rules.
Well, I mean, it's okay for now because we are thinking about public safety right now. So for now, it's good measure, I think.
Well, I knew I wouldn't be able to get everything I needed, so I came for what I could get. Nothing major, but like we've been doing home renovations and stuff. Like wanted to look at like ottomans and stuff like that, but we can't, I guess, for the next month.
There's a couple people in there throwing some hissy fits, but it's to be expected.
What kind of hissy fits did you see somebody kind of?
Yeah, they were trying to get down some of the aisles, and they had people standing there blocking it off, kind of thing.
Okay. So the store definitely has an education that they have to be given out at the same time.
Yeah. I think people got to learn to be a little kinder.
Well, one staff member I spoke with at one of the stores I visited told me they too were understanding of the reasons those sections of the store had to be closed off. In fairness to the retailers that are again relegated to curbside pickup and delivery.
Thanks for this, Jacob. CBC's Jacob Barker live tonight. There's still confusion over who can get a COVID-19 shot in the region's hot zones. Frustration that more isn't being done to address the barriers that many face in those areas as well. CBC's Katerina Georgieva has more.
We really need clarity from the government.
MPP Lisa Gretzky says her office has been flooded with calls and emails with questions about when people can get their vaccines. The confusion, whether or not those 18 and up in hotspot neighborhoods throughout the province will be able to get their COVID shots. You might recall the province identified high priority areas throughout Ontario. We have 2 zones in the county, 5 in the city of Windsor. In some communications, a spokesperson with the province has said in these high-risk areas, mobile teams working with public health units, community groups, and local businesses will be established to administer vaccines to individuals 18 plus to targeted settings as supply allows. Later clarifying this will be happening in Toronto and Peel, with no mention of a rollout in other parts of the province. For now, just those 50 and older in Windsor's hot zones are able to sign up for a vaccine. But the chatter about 18 plus seemed to catch the health unit off guard this morning.
Our booking system will be accommodating those 50 plus.
For the province, for the Premier, the Minister of Health and others to not be clear with the health units and the people of the province is causing a lot of undue stress
As for the possibility of mobile teams in local hot zones,
it's not in our plan at this time to do mobile clinic, just based on the resource intensiveness and the time that it would take us to do vaccination using those mobile clinics.
Meanwhile, the downtown core, the hardest hit hot zone in the city, has among the lowest vaccination rates in the region.
I just think maybe the downtown area should maybe have more things set up to get a ride to the vaccines and make it more available by putting more signs up or something.
Others experienced some of the access challenges firsthand.
Every time I went to the Shoppers Drug Mart over here, we ran out. And I kept on going every week. Every time I asked them, they said, oh, you always got to wait till next week. And I went this week and I was lucky to get it.
So far, the health unit says they do have initiatives in the planning stages to address a more targeted approach in hard-hit hot zones. But for now, the only real change is the age bracket. Katerina Georgieva, CBC News, Windsor.
There's more money available for farm operators from the province, $10 million to help pay for changes that protect workers. But as Dale Molnar reports, the province isn't very clear on when or how migrant farm workers will be vaccinated.
The fund will reimburse farm operations up to $15,000 for things like PPE and extra housing. The Ontario government plans to take applications starting April 22nd.
If the pandemic carries on and we need to reconsider the end result, we're quite prepared to do that. But we believe that we have the right amount in place now.
As for vaccinations, Hardeman says migrant farm workers are part of Phase 2 rollout. We're currently at the start of Phase 2, so the exact date when the migrants will be included is not clear.
And as Dr. Yaffe said, we're looking at all options, which could include doing a program at the airports.
Dr. Dirk Heyer, coordinator of Ontario's provincial outbreak response, says it's up to each health unit to roll out a program. So the health unit in Haldimand, Norfolk, just east of Tillsonburg, has already started vaccinating migrant workers, 340 so far. Health units in Windsor, Essex, and Lambton say they are still developing plans to vaccinate the workers. Chatham-Kent plans to vaccinate them as they come in.
We are concerned, and we will continue to ensure that any COVID cases are contained in the farm, and we find the opportunity to vaccinate the temporary farm workers as quickly as we can.
But Heyer says there is a limited amount of vaccine.
And we have allocated across the province based upon the population and allocated based upon population across the different public health units. So everybody is getting an allocation in their population way with some potential increase for those that have been recognized as hotspot areas where there has been a disproportionate number of illness, cases, and deaths.
Leamington and Kingsville, where the bulk of migrant farm workers are living in congregate settings, are considered hotspots. Ahmed says a confirmed case of the UK variant on a farm has been contained and there is no evidence of spread. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
And people on Pelee Island will soon be able to get vaccinated. A clinic is set to open for 2 days on the island, April 19th and 20th. One resident with autoimmune issues says she's grateful.
Knowing that I'm vaccinated, making me less likely to carry COVID, makes me feel like a really good neighbor in our community. I think in a situation like this with COVID, we're just grateful that it's coming at all. You know, we see so many people around the world who are struggling and fighting to get vaccines at all. So the fact that we can have this when it's a time when people are wanting to be outside more and getting that mental health of being outside and in nature, which being on Pelee Island is something really important to us. Again, any timing, I think, is great.
The vaccine will be arriving through Orange Air Ambulance. The island's deputy mayor says the vaccine's open to younger people, but most of the 300 permanent residents are elderly. While Pelee Island isn't a COVID-19 hotspot, the health unit says it's special because the area is a remote community. Top health officials are trying to head off vaccination hesitancy fueled by concerns about the AstraZeneca vaccine. There is evidence of a possible link between the drug and rare blood clots. That prompted Canada's National Advisory Committee on Immunization to recommend only people over the age of 55 should get it. Today, Canada's deputy medical health officer said all COVID-19 vaccines undergo rigorous testing and serious side effects are extremely rare. He urged people to take advantage of whichever vaccine is available to them.
In Canada, we are taking the prudent approach based on the recommendation from NACI. We're taking a pause in terms of use of the AstraZeneca vaccine for those under 55 years of age, but certainly continue to recommend very strongly, in terms of the benefits versus the risk. Anyone over the age of 55, you should accept or certainly go for the first vaccine that's offered to you, and that includes AstraZeneca.
Now, the health experts also say the spread of COVID variants has become a key concern. They continue to advise avoiding close contact with other people, wearing a mask, and plenty of hand washing. The province says it's stepping up enforcement at essential workplaces, looking for companies and employees not following the COVID-19 safety requirements. But as Lorenda Redikoff explains, there's still questions about what the vaccination efforts at those workplaces will look like.
The government says it's increasing workplace inspections, heading to hundreds of job sites that remain open, starting in Peel and Halton region, 2 COVID hotspots.
We still continue to see in some workplaces that masking protocols aren't being followed, safety plans aren't in place. Some workplaces still aren't pre-screening customers or workers.
Some of the workplace outbreaks in Toronto include this condo construction site with 19 cases, an athletics wear manufacturer with 25 cases, and a Maple Leaf Foods plant. Yesterday, the government announced plans for vaccinations at essential businesses in hotspots. McNaughton had few details about the plan today.
We've literally reached out as a government to hundreds of workplaces to determine where we're going to vaccinate workers because it is critical.
A group that represents manufacturers says companies are ready, and some that work in the U.S. already do it there.
The auto companies, the auto parts companies, the big steel companies, they have all said, hey, we're willing to put our hand up and help because they're doing it in other jurisdictions.
Brampton's mayor says he's hearing from many companies too, all wanting to host a vaccination clinic. He says the first mobile unit could come to Peel as early as Monday.
These mobile units visiting high-risk neighborhoods and factories is going to be a game changer. We know where the transmission is coming from, and finally, after months of asking, we're actually going to target our efforts on where we're seeing the outbreaks.
As for the workplace inspections, he'd like to see another safety measure, as some medical officers have recommended decreasing capacity at essential workplaces.
I think Canadians can wait a few extra days to get their packages or have a little bit less selection in the grocery store, if it means getting numbers under control.
The government says it plans to visit hundreds of workplaces between tomorrow and Sunday. Lorenda Redikoff, CBC News, Toronto.
And the numbers here in Windsor, Essex, 39 new cases of COVID-19 reported this morning. Active cases are slightly down, now at 393 in the region. Variants of concern, those are rising, 198 in the community as of this morning. In the race between COVID variants and vaccines, the variants appear to be out in front. Canada reporting more than 16,000 cases of the mutations first detected in the UK, South Africa, and Brazil. Health experts are calling the spread a growing threat, and hospitals are being forced to change the way that they handle COVID-19 patients. CBC's Christine Burek has the details.
Without a doubt, this is the third wave doctors were warning about.
With more contagious variants driving epidemic growth in many areas of Canada, we know this virus is not going out with a whimper.
Experts say Canada is one of the few countries with major variants rapidly spreading at the same time. While the U.S. doesn't screen as much, it has a much larger population. Still, Canada is tracking similar case numbers of the B117 variant first identified in the UK and the one in South Africa. This country's also found nearly 3 times the number of P1 cases first seen in Brazil.
If it continues at the rate it is, then I think we're going to have a tough summer.
Doctors in intensive care units say the original coronavirus, known as the wild type, is disappearing. They're now dealing with a whole new pandemic.
We now have to isolate our patients until we know whether or not they are wild type, B117, or the P1 variant, because mixing them can cause reinfections and secondary contamination and outbreaks in our hospitals.
While the more contagious B117 variant is now surging in most provinces, BC, Alberta, and Ontario are also confronting the P1 variant. Not only has it led to reinfections in Brazil, but research suggests there's been a sudden rise in COVID-19 case fatality among young and middle-aged adults in southern Brazil after the P1 variant was identified. This study isn't peer-reviewed yet, and while the death rate remains low, researchers say for patients aged 20 to 29, fatality rates tripled and similarly doubled for middle-aged adults.
I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that we will get everybody vaccinated before we see the combinations of mutations.
There's no evidence so far suggesting any of these variants can fully get around current vaccines, but doctors insist provinces need more severe lockdowns, like the ones we saw last year, in order to get this surge under control. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, as these vaccines roll out across large parts of the world, there's a big question. Should people who get a shot have to prove that they've been vaccinated? The European Union is discussing a so-called vaccine passport. People who are vaccinated would get a certificate, either on paper or digitally, and that would allow them to travel freely across all 27 member states. Some European countries, including Denmark and Estonia, are planning to use vaccine passports domestically. Now, in Denmark, people will have to show proof of vaccination to get a haircut, eat at a restaurant, to see a movie. Israel has one of the highest vaccination rates in the world, and people who are fully vaccinated there get a green pass that is supposed to be shown to access facilities like hotels, gyms, and theaters. Our live look outside here as it appears the rain has started to stop. It was a little bit drizzly there for a bit. Colette Kennedy is going to come and join us with the forecast after the break. Love is in the air out in Lakeshore, thanks to some public art that's on display at Optimist Park. These are called 7 Hearts for Lakeshore. They were put up by members of the region's Arts Advisory Committee, and all of them represent stories of hope through this pandemic. They all use recycled material, symbolize things like a need to support local, feeling joy as this pandemic hopefully draws to an end. And some even have QR codes on them so you can actually go up with your phone and you can hear songs about hope. And when we look a little flower with a beautiful smile on there, we bring in Colette. I think there's a lot of people who are smiling today that were looking at those gardens because of that weather that's coming through here. We got a little bit of that rain, a little bit of that enjoyable moisture, I guess, if you're someone who's trying to plant something up and start it growing.
Yes, it's becoming moist. You're right. We are looking at some of the rain kind of moving in here. So still, yeah, the mild temperatures, but your garden does need some rain showers too, some wet conditions, and those are kind of working their way in for us as well. I want to show you kind of the temperature pattern here over a larger area, because look at how our temperature has fallen off, certainly at the reporting station with some rain moving through and even some embedded thunderstorm, down 10 degrees from the 25 we were at earlier. But you see this core too of some colder air here, and yet it's warmer back towards southwest Kansas and Dodge City. So what's going on right here? Well, let me show you. It's this vast system that is beginning to have an impact on southwestern Ontario, but you can see just how grand it is here. And so we're going to have kind of different levels to it as it works its way through, sort of off and on here. And right now we're on, so we'll go in for a closer look on the radar in a moment. I do want to show you as well that Sarnia, it's still 26 degrees where you don't have the wet conditions yet. 27 was the high today, and Goderich 27 today as well. Goderich now you're at 25. Some of the winds have been gusty at times. We know that when they drop below 30 kilometers an hour, then we don't see a reading here because I'm just picking up gusts. But you can see Chatham-Kent, we have some stronger ones, and Goderich as well. And tomorrow they're going to be coming in from that southerly, southeasterly flow, picking up and strong off the lake. So watch that along the lake shore. There are some of the lightning strikes associated here as this is kind of pushing sort of northward. So thunderstorms and showers working their way through, becoming more scattered in nature, and we start to see those thunderstorms abating, so just kind of the remnants with the rain and not so much lightning. And then as we look ahead and what happens on Friday, we'll get into this drier slot. You saw how broad the bands were with this system, so we get a drier slot, get some sunshine, push those temperatures back up again, but that energy just kind of lends to the atmosphere getting into a chance of some returning scattered showers and thunderstorms late in the day. So it's going to be that kind of a pattern. Saturday, we get a nice dry chunk in there until this next band comes through. And when that does, Saturday night, we're looking at potentially, especially with some areas that locally you get some of the thunderstorm activity, 15, 20, even 25 millimeters of rainfall with that band. Overnight tonight, these are your readings. It actually got a little bit cooler last night. We went down into single digits. Tomorrow afternoon, again, it's going to depend how much we get into that dry slot and get some sun coming through here in between the bands. Check out those winds, though, southeast and then turning more southerly there. But after that, Saturday, dry until late, and then into Sunday, still some wet conditions, and the temperatures do start to kind of drop off a little bit. Still above seasonal, though, Chris, just not maybe as much.
Not as much, but the rain, the thunder, we had a couple rumbles there earlier. It's nice. A good spring storm brings a smile on everyone's face. Isn't that the way that goes?
I've not heard that before.
There's alliteration. It has to be.
Yes, but I like the positive attitude. That's right.
We're trying. It's all we have is just positive vibes. That's all we got.
Yes, let's keep them going.
Thanks for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
Now, speaking of positive vibes, if you've got some original comic books, you're going to want to stick around for this next story, a super buy for the Man of Steel. How much an original Superman comic went for when we get back. For a sixth straight night, there was violence in the streets in Northern Ireland's capital, Belfast, a level of unrest that hasn't been seen in recent years, and in part fueled by an ongoing anger over the impact of Brexit. Renee Filippone from London.
One of the gates of Belfast's so-called peace wall was lit up with fire from both sides, as hundreds of rioters, many of them young, took part in what's been a week of escalating violence. Acts of aggression, like this attack on a bus, have police calling it the worst rioting Northern Ireland has seen in years.
The fact that it was sectarian violence and there was large groups on both sides of the gates at Lanark Way, again, is something that we have not seen for a number of years.
The violence comes at a time when pro-British unionists are concerned Brexit is eroding their position within the UK and are angered by new customs checks at the ports.
Brexit is fundamental to what's happening in Northern Ireland at the moment because it's basically changed the status of Northern Ireland, not constitutionally, but it's definitely changed it vis-a-vis the Republic of Ireland and with Great Britain.
There was also anger directed at the police for not prosecuting members of the Irish nationalist party Sinn Féin for attending a mass funeral during COVID restrictions.
And I want to begin.
In an emergency meeting of Northern Ireland's power-sharing government, there were calls for a united front against the violence.
When politics feel or are perceived to be feeling in Northern Ireland, then those who fill the vacuum offer destruction and despair.
But there are real concerns the violence between communities will only get worse.
You can get an escalation because now they have a target other than the police. And then you have a sense of defending your community, not just expressing frustration.
The charred remains of unrest, all too familiar here, and a reminder of how fragile things can be in a place so deeply divided. Renee Filippone, CBC News, London.
The Man of Steel has smashed a new record at the auction house. A very rare copy of Action Comics #1, Superman's very first appearance, sold in an online auction on Tuesday for about $4 million Canadian. That's about $1 million more than the last time it sold back in 2018. This particular copy was discovered in mint condition, buried in a stack of old 1930s movie magazines. It might be time for another treasure hunt in your attics and basements, especially with the story about this comic book, the Pokemon cards, the hockey cards. Old is valuable. That's the lesson we've learned so far. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.